Yeah, a little bit healthy. Okay, so we're going to go right to the phones. We have on hold our first guest of the show, which is Hugh Dunn, Ward 3 City Councilor. He was Eddie's city councilor as well as Eddie's friend, and we're going to go right to the phones. Good morning, Councilor Dunn. How are you doing?
Great. How are you, Chris?
Great, great. Thanks for joining us here to pay tribute to Eddie Johnson.
Thanks for having me on. Eddie was a friend, and Eddie was a wealth of knowledge, and it's a huge loss to the city of New Bedford.
What I know that he got on board the Hugh Dunn train pretty early this campaign season, and helped you out. What did he bring to the table in terms of educating you on the issues?
So, as everybody knows, Eddie was a champion of environmental justice related to Clean, the organization that he founded and was the president of. And that organization was a real catalyst for the cleanup of the Parker Street waste site. So he gave me a lot of background on that remediation project. And that actually came up for a vote quite recently to approve the funding to get that project capped and cleaned entirely by 2019. So he was very useful in helping me kind of weigh out the different options with that, and just giving me the context because I hadn't been familiar with that project prior to that. But Eddie also had a great role in championing the history of African Americans in our community, and he had worked with Congressman Keating's office on that in the past, where I'd worked in the past, and so he was involved with the I believe it's the Pathways Project,
right?
And that was to champion the history of 4 African American Revolutionary War soldiers, and that story of African Americans partaking in the founding of our country has been largely overlooked. And Eddie
Sure.
was a real advocate for that. And now they have a site in Plymouth that is federally recognized. He went to the mat on that issue. He went to court. He battled different politicians on it. So. That was another issue that I was familiar with Eddie on.
And you knew him through obviously working for Congressman Keating prior to becoming a member of the New Bedford City Council. Is it safe to say that had Eddie not been involved in that project to honor African American Revolutionary War veterans, that it probably never would have happened?
Yeah, I think that Eddie had really played a leading role in that project, and he's brought other folks on. I see that Marquise Houtman and Eric Andrade are involved, and I'd expect that they'd continue with Eddie's leadership to push that project for to get the recognition that those 4 soldiers earned in helping create our democracy.
Hey, Hugh, we're speaking with Hugh Dunn, Ward 3 City Councilor, who's a friend of Eddie Johnson's. Just a final word here. If Eddie was still with us and could hear you, maybe he can hear you, maybe he is here. What would you like to say to him before we let you go?
Well, I'd actually just like to say to him that, on June 18th, New Bedford suffered a big loss. New Bedford lost some of its voice on June 18th. And, Eddie was democracy at its best. He was involved, he was engaged, and he was informed. And that's, when you have citizens like Eddie Johnson participating, that's when you get a government that people deserve. And so, I just hope that people look at Eddie and they realize that it's incumbent for all of us to step up to make sure that New Bedford keeps moving forward. Eddie really, really loved New Bedford, and I think we should look at Eddie as an example of how to contribute to our city.